Hello there, folks. Welcome to AV Rant. If you're seeing this, you're watching the behind the scenes version. There will be a complete 2-hour video version where we've edited things together. So if you hear some audio dropouts during this video, things like that happening in the background. We'll be talking about images that you won't be able to see, and that's all because this is behind the scenes. So if you want something with definitely better audio quality, usually better video quality, and the images we're talking about, check out the complete 2-hour video version that'll be posting hopefully tomorrow as I say this. So yeah, without too much further ado, let's see. We'll switch the camera over to Tom, and Tom can start whenever he feels like starting.
All right. Well, I'll be back in an hour. That's when I feel like starting. All right. Here we go. Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. We're recording on a Tuesday once again, and yeah, lots and lots of questions. We'll try to get to it.
Yeah. So we're recording on a Tuesday because my son's birthday was on St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
And he was sick like 4 days before that. So he decided to schedule something later. And for reasons I cannot possibly fathom, my wife agreed to doing it Monday night on spring break.
Right.
So it's spring break, which is fine. But I had work and I had other things I needed to do. And I really didn't need to be doing this. And I spent all day with those kids. And there wasn't that many. But last night they had a sleepover. So as I mentioned last night, we bought an Ultra HD Blu-ray player, the X700.
Yeah,
and we
Sony
bought
X700.
We bought the Thor Ragnarok, and the boys watched it in here last night. I left them alone. I'm like, I'm not going in there. You guys do your thing. You guys do what you would do, and then you can, whatever. And I actually told my wife a couple of times, like, I'm hearing too much stuff coming from the home theater because we were not that far away. I'm like, we need to move farther away because I'm getting spoilers and I don't want to get spoiled. So I had to go further away. So last night after they went to bed, I watched it.
Okay.
So the Sony X700, whatever it's called, UDP or whatever it is, X700. I hooked the Netflix up, and the Netflix has got an audio delay that's pretty significant, and I can't figure out a way to fix it because the audio delay does not exist on the Blu-rays, so I don't want to change the delay on the receiver.
Sure, right.
That'll mess everything up.
Yeah.
So I'm still kind of futzing with that. Now, I'll be honest with you. There's a part of me that thinks I've done something wrong as far as the audio settings, because the bass in Thor Ragnarok, the whole movie itself, like usually I listen, I've said this before, if I'm trying to impress people, I might bump it up to reference level or a couple of dB past reference level. This one, just to listen to it like at what I thought was a reasonable level with people asleep not that far away, I was at +5.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah. So, and I never thought the bass was all that. I mean, I could feel it vibrating the couch a little bit, but then again, I got two big subs in a smallish room, so I would expect that to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it's saying Dolby Atmos on the receiver, and I've checked the audio settings. Everything it's set to let your receiver decode or whatever it's called.
Yep.
So it should be right, but
are you only using a single HDMI connection going from the player to your receiver and then receiver to the projector, or because it does have the dual HDMI outputs with the audio only second HDMI. You could maybe give that a try. I don't know why it would help.
Why would that make any difference?
I don't know.
I can't imagine why it would. I'm going to futz with the settings and see what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And I also need to, I mean, I've only got 2 Ultra HD Blu-rays, and one of them's Logan. And when I started Logan the other day, I didn't notice that. So maybe Thor is just mixed quieter.
Who knows? Yeah.
I don't know. Anyhow, loved it.
Good.
Watched it last night. Loved it. I mean, after all the hype for Black Panther, and I liked Black Panther, I loved Thor Ragnarok. I thought that was quite a bit better in my book. But yeah, the performances, maybe like Kate Blanchett, who was chewing up the scenery and stuff like that. Didn't love her as much as I love Killmonger from Black Panther, but loved it. Loved the rest of the movie quite a bit. So. All right, let's get on this. This is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You can go to www.avrant.com. Leave us a comment there. Facebook.com/AVRant YouTube.com/C/AVRant.
You don't have to say the C anymore. That's coming up in our Listeners of the Week. It's just
There's no C?
youtube.com/AVRant. It works now.
I don't believe it.
I know. You're going to check right now,
I'm
aren't you?
checking right now. AVRant.
youtube.com/AVRant. It goes to our page.
It goes to our page.
It's
It's
like we're
literally
a
my face
real
on there right
boy.
now. We're like, I'm a real boy. Anyhow, youtube.com/AVRant,
I know.
where you can leave a comment that we will ignore. So do not leave a comment. I mean, you can leave YouTube loves it if you leave comments. Leave all the comments there. I don't care. It's just that it's very hard for us to read them because we don't get real good announcements about them. I guess I don't.
It's also like the only place we get negative comments. So, I mean,
But
I guess it's good for keeping us humble. But...
Months ago. Months ago, it's like, hey, this information is completely out of date. Like, yeah, dude, that's a year-old video. Welcome to
it's like
real world.
episode 512. Why did you say this? That's not true. They're watching it now. It's like, yeah. Look at the date on the video.
Anywho, if you want to contact us directly, it's rob@avrant.com. His Twitter is @firstreflect. It's tom@avrant.com. Twitter is @avrant_tom. We also have our producer, Austin. Because Twitter is @Austin Pon, TEN Pon. Austin has got his own podcast, So We Watch Movies podcast, a podcast about names of people, famous or not, who have numbers within their names. So this all came about because Austin
10
has 10 in it. Yeah. And then they talk about that.
I'm struggling to think of any other names, but all right.
They exist. They exist. It's
I'm
not.
Sure
I mean, their podcasts are 3 minutes long, and they've got 14 of them. So I mean, it doesn't take long to go through the whole backlog. It's just a couple of people. Most of them named Austin. To be honest with you, it's a bunch of Austins. And Lord Tennyson's in there for sure. Yeah, he's going to be on there. Earl of Eightwit. I think that's the Earl.
For folks who are asking, both of us sound better. We both seem to be on the mend.
And, we'll see what happens. I was a hot mess that night. I just got progressively sicker as I wasn't sick. I was just like really bad allergies. It just kept getting worse and worse. It rained, so that has helped.
Knocked down the pollen. There you go.
Knocked down the pollen quite a bit. I'm still like right now. I've got like some sort of hive action going on my arms, so I need to take some sort of Benadryl tonight. But we will see.
Okay.
All right.
Let's
get into the listeners of the week. Yeah. So to start with, we like to thank our listeners of the week. There's people that support the podcast in some way. One way they can do that is by going to www.avrant.com, clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, which takes them to a PayPal donation. Those monies go into our coffers, which help pay for hosting fees and other such things. Like my wife just told me that AVRant owes her a bunch of money. I'm like, what?
Still?
She's like, yeah.
Really?
Well, I mean, it's backlog stuff. So I mean, it's been in there that she has not transferred over. She's like, do you have this much money in there? Because you guys, that's kind of like whatever. You got like we're in the black in that we're like self-sufficient as far as hosting fees and everything.
Right.
But apparently, like we haven't paid the person who does the taxes, or which is this other lady for my business, because AVRant's under her business, in like 4 years. Like she hasn't sent us a bill in 4 years, so it's not our fault, but she's like, we're about to get a big bill, so I'm just letting you know. Anyhow, so that's good. So we want to thank Brock and Brandon. They gave us some money through that, and we want to thank them very much. I guess Brandon also noticed that the occasional white lines on his Vizio P-Series TV went away after a firmware update, so he might not return it at all, I guess, in favor of the LG OLED, which is something we talked about last week. So we want to thank Brock and Brandon for their donations.
Yeah, Brock, Brandon, thank you very much for those donations.
So, and we want to thank our patrons over at Patreon. Patreon.com/AVRant podcast is our site where you can sign up for their service, which will allow you to donate on a monthly basis. It's kind of like a subscription thing. So I want to thank our 56 patrons over there, including John, who has let us know that he is one of our patrons. If you're one of our patrons and would like us to mention you, feel free to email us and we will.
For sure, yeah. Thanks so much to our 56 patrons. The number went up. Very happy about that. That's patreon.com/AVRant podcast. John S., thank you very much for being one of the patrons.
And If you can't support the podcast financially, if you can figure out some other way to support it to make our lives easier or to let people know about us, just tell us what you did and we'll mention you. So Shubu2, which is somebody's username on YouTube, alerted us about the whole we don't need to see anymore on YouTube.
Yeah.
So thank you, Shubu2.
Yes, I very much appreciate it. I never would have even thought to check if that were the case. So thank you for alerting us.
Do I go to our web or something? Never. John bought an SVS SB12 NSD subwoofer from their outlet section over at SVS. SVS provided checkboxes to let them know where they had heard about SVS. They had an AV Rant podcast checkbox. So he ticked that one, of course. So we got our own box, dude. That's how cool we are with SVS. So thank you, John.
Thank you very much, John, and congrats on that purchase. Very nice subwoofer.
And Terry bought a couple of 4K Ultra HD Blu-rays because they were actually cheaper than the regular Blu-ray versions. He doesn't have a 4K setup yet, so he sent the UHD discs to Rob for free. Well, that's nice of him. Where were these cheaper than Blu-ray versions? Because I'd like to have some of those too.
I'm not quite sure. I'm sure it happens from time to time. You know how it goes. Sure, so for whatever reason, they're clearing them out. So yeah, Terry, thank you very much. What were they? E.T., which, never a bad movie to have in any format. And 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which I am looking forward to watching because, of course, it had a bunch of Oscar buzz.
The Oscar things, right?
Yeah, a bunch of Oscar buzz. So thank you very much, Terry.
Yeah. That's one of those movies I'm going to watch once.
Probably.
Maybe. I did notice that on Netflix they have The Descent 2.
Yes.
I am a huge fan of the first
Descent
movie. Yes, I love that movie.
I wouldn't get my hopes up too high. I mean, I haven't seen Descent 2. Maybe it's great, but usually they're not.
I have watched it.
Oh.
It is awful. It is so bad. I mean, it is just the only good parts of this movie are the flashbacks to the original movie where they show scenes from the original movie where you're like, remember how good the lighting was in the original movie? Remember how it didn't look like we were standing under the fluorescent lights in a cave that was on a soundstage in Santa Maria, Santa Paula, whatever they call it, Santa Place in California. Remember that? So bad. So incredibly
say
bad.
I'm shocked.
No, okay, this is how bad it was. I got 2/3 of the way through the movie, I backed out of it. I was like, I cannot watch this garbage anymore. And I'm like, no, I'll just finish it. I hate not finishing movies.
Sure.
So I finished it. There was nothing redeeming about the movie. There was nothing redeeming at all. All right, in the news, via Chris, there are some places around the web reporting that HDMI 2.1 devices are here right now. It's all because of some computer monitors, some of the newly announced Samsung TVs, and the Xbox One X and Xbox One S offering support for VRR, which is a variable refresh rate, which is one of the many features that are included in HDMI 2.1. There's also ALLM, which is this auto low latency mode, which is essentially just a flag that puts the TV into game mode automatically without the user having to manually switch picture modes. Naturally, this is all causing some confusion. To be clear, none of these devices support 48 gigabits per second bandwidth. As the HDMI group themselves stated early in the year, existing 2.0 devices can potentially be upgraded to support some of the features found in HDMI 2.1 spec, such as VRR and EARC, which is what extended
enhanced audio return channel. Yeah.
Which gives us a lossless. Is that what I'm supposed to believe from that?
That's right. That's what it's supposed to
Which don't necessarily require increased bandwidth. But that isn't stopping some people from screaming, HDMI 2.1 is here.
Yeah, the fervor over HDMI 2.1 across the web, it's this is why HDMI never wanted specification numbers to be a public knowledge. That was never their intent. They wanted us to focus just on features, and the specification was supposed to be for the manufacturers behind the scenes to figure out what they needed to do. But of course the numbers got out there, and that's what the public has glommed onto, because numbers that go up sequentially are easier to track. And so as soon as whatever the particular feature that they want of the new spec comes out, they're like, oh, the new spec is here, but it's not really. The real thing about HDMI 2.1 is the 48 gigabits per second, and nothing has that yet. So don't get too excited over that. And you know what? It's a spec number. We shouldn't be really focusing on that. But
I am I am very calm about the whole thing. Thank you, Rob, for calming me down. Also, via Chris, Vizio did something completely unexpected with their latest beta firmware for the TVs. Apparently, they got their optical audio outputs to pass Dolby Digital Plus, which means you can get the lossy version of Atmos from some of the built-in streaming services using the optical collection, which is a first. So that's exciting.
Yeah, that's definitely unexpected, but HDMI ARC, the regular audio return channel that we all have right now, that has the same amount of bandwidth as a SPDIF, a Sony Philips digital interface connection, which would be your digital coax or optical Toslink connection. Those three things all have the same amount of bandwidth. So some companies, Vizio and LG in particular, got Dolby Digital Plus working across HDMI ARC. So I guess Vizio was like, well, if we can do it there, why can't we do it across a SPDIF connection? It should work there too. And apparently they got it going. So that's the first time I've heard about Dolby Digital Plus being sent across an optical Toslink connection. But there you go. Good for them. It's still beta.
Yeah. All right. Got some comments here real quick. Michael in Austria or Australia?
No, Austria.
Okay. Just wanted to say that Tom was probably thinking of the DAB Plus digital radio system in Europe when we were discussing why the Denon AVC X8500H has no FM radio tuner built in, and he is correct. That is exactly what I was thinking of. However, Michael says that DAB Plus didn't replace FM radio. FM is still broadcast, so he finds the removal of FM tuners from AV receivers to be a slight annoyance. The DAB Plus system still requires a separate tuner box, and getting internet radio requires more button presses, so he'd still like an FM tuner built in. And he's right. You know, if I had thought about it when I was saying that, and I wasn't so worried about snot running down my face, I would have thought about the fact that I did have the DAB system, DAB Plus, whatever it was, and I never used it. It was a part of my cable box, but we still listened to radio when we were driving around the car. So clearly the FM was still there. I just wasn't making the connection in my big, sick brain. Henry on Twitter asked Rob for some tips on how to set up his dual subwoofers when they arrived. That prompted Rob to type up a 12-step guide for setting up dual subs. That immediately prompted Mark to ask if Rob's guide would be applicable for 3 subs. It is not. We recommend using the multi-sub optimizer software for 3 or 4 subwoofer setups. Yeah. So did you post that on the website?
I posted that on Twitter. So we'll have a link for that in the thing. If you want me to copy it over to the website, I can do that.
Yeah. Make a post on the website.
I'll make a little post on the website then. There we go.
And you can send people to that.
It will be a copy and a paste.
That is fine. You have 12 steps on Twitter?
Yeah, well, you know, if you can thread. And if you, I start with, if you have an enclosed rectangular room, it's like a 4-step process.
Yeah.
You only have to go up to the 12 steps if you do not have an enclosed rectangular room, but many people do not have an enclosed rectangular room. So
there we go. All right, let's get to the questions here. Brock is wondering whether it's time to upgrade his 65-inch Panasonic TC series plasma to something newer to check out 4K and HDR content. Although his let's go here. Come on, the plasma. Although his plasma still looks great, it emits a faint, high-pitched whir sound, particularly in bright scenes, and that's slightly annoying. That's not uncommon with...
Yeah, that happens with plasmas. It's just that panel buzz that comes out of it. Yeah.
It does. Also, with the 2018 LG OLEDs about to be released, he's seen a few deals on the 2017 models, like the 65-inch E7 for $23.99. He's concerned, though, are there any features in the 18 LG models or possibly the 19 models that he'll regret not having if he buys a 2017? Probably. I don't know, though.
Well, so, I mean, one of the reasons why I'm quite happy that I got a 2017 is there were no major hardware changes. Like, you didn't get panels that are strikingly brighter or anything like that. In fact, LG is saying that the 2018s are using the exact same panels as the 2017s. So the major...
It's all software.
Yeah, it's all in the software. They beefed up the processor a little bit. Mm-hmm. And they did so the kind of main features that they're talked about is black frame insertion, which is you're running the panel at 120 frames, but 60 out of those 120 are actual images, and then the other 60 in between are black frames. So Vincent T.O. from HDTV Test, he's got a look at the first ones going. He's like, you can see a bit of flicker when that thing is on, and it dims the image. So don't really know if that's going to be that popular turning it on. And then they have a new decontouring filter, which is like if there is posterization, like the color banding, actually inherent in the source, like a streaming source, which is quite common. Right. This is supposed to filter that out. They did the thing that LG always does, which is they didn't bother making a new menu item for that. They just hid it within the MPEG noise menu. They're like, set MPEG noise to low and it'll turn on the decontouring filter. Although now they have separated out the active HDR for HDR10 and given that its own menu item instead of hiding it behind the dynamic contrast setting like they did in 2017. So each year after they add something, I guess they eventually give it. In 2019, I'm sure the decontouring filter will have its own menu item. That's how that's going to go.
Wow.
But yeah, if you were like a professional and you wanted the full 33 by 33 by 33 3D lookup table to get like super accurate colors, I guess you would want that. But for a consumer, they're already darn close out of the box.
Right.
So all the features that are in there, like, it's kind of like the decontouring feel, that'd be kind of nice. The black frame insertion, maybe you'd use it, probably not if you can see the flicker happening. The 3D lookup table, consumers really probably aren't going to need that or get into that. So I think getting a clearance priced 2017 model is like a darn good deal, because you're getting the major thing, which was the panel that got much better between 2016 and 2017. The 2017 panels are like almost twice as bright as the 2016s. That's a significant hardware thing. But I'd feel pretty good about getting a 2017. And not just because I have one. I'm not saying that just because I have one. It's like that, the important thing is the hardware. The software stuff, less important.
Okay.
That's what I
just
said.
Getting ready to change my AC, which is about to switch itself off at 10 o'clock. Because I can feel it blowing. It's nice and cool in here.
Yep.
Not going to roast like I did last time. That's got me thinking about my Blu-ray player as well, because I was noticing that it seemed like there was something going on with the picture that was bothering me. Like there were, I don't know if it almost seemed like it was trying to do 3D without being 3D. You know what I mean? There may have been some edge enhancement. So I turned the DRC completely off. That's probably right. It's usually right. But you know what? Maybe after the podcast, I'll go through with you on the settings, and we'll take a look and see what we see.
Yeah.
Brock's current theater room is an in-law suite above his garage. It's funny. Okay, let me go back. I just said I'm going to go through with Rob, and everybody's like, "Well, doesn't Tom have like access to all the experts?" Dude, email Rob. We'll go through that. I am not special. I'm not special around here. Rob will write you a 12-step guide whether you like it or not. I mean. Email me too. I mean, it's not like I'm an idiot, but I double check. Why would I not double check if I've got access to a second pair of eyes? Most of the time I'm doing this stuff, I'm doing it by myself and everything's fine. And I can figure stuff out on my own, just like many of you can. But it's always good to have a second pair of eyes. All right. Brock's current theater room is an in-law suite above his garage. It's roughly 21 feet by 14 feet with a long hallway at the back. But the ceiling is a very oddly shaped with a large A-frame style slant at the front, a partial slant at the back, but only on one side. Plus, there are skylights, a ceiling fan, and can lights going on all over the place in this thing. So, if you're watching our YouTube video, you will see that there is there's a drawing, which kind of looks like a paddle of some sort, but basically it's a long
there's a hallway at the back there. Yeah,
at the back of this home theater, and his seat is about a little bit past, a little bit further away from the TV than the middle of the room, which is good. And where he's facing, we can see that there's a TV, and there's on a separate picture a TV, two skylight-like windows on the very slanted roof. Two little tower speakers there. There's a couple of recliners that are sitting probably. Well, they're definitely outside of the center, the left and right speakers, so not prime seating there. Ceiling fan above, there's some can lights there, there's windows on the right and a door on the left. The door probably goes to the attic, one would think, but I could be wrong about that. So let's look around here. We see the long hallway at the back, though. There's a door there. There's a little bit of slant on one side, which looks like it might be stairs, I'm guessing, are going up someplace. Could be. I don't know. It kind of looks that way. And there's a recess section right above him. It's got a very strange ceiling.
Yeah.
So this is a new house for Brock, and it has an unfinished basement. The basement is more or less divided into two sides by the staircase in the middle. Okay, so the staircase in the middle of the room, we're seeing on like a drawing of it as well here, but you can see basically it is just an open space with a stairway down the middle. There's unfinished ceiling. There's unfinished walls that would kind of block off the bottom of the stairs there. There's storage going on down there. It looks like there might be a sink in one corner. It's really hard to tell. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. One side is 28 feet long and 19 feet wide, but it has 4 support columns that run lengthwise, so it really disrupts the width of the space. And he does have those big support columns, and yes.
And that's holding up your house. So
yeah, you don't want to move those. Don't kick those as you're walking by. The other side of the basement is about 19 feet long and 13 feet wide. 19 by 13. Okay. From the concrete floor to the joist above is 8 feet 9 inches, but there's some ductwork that would lower the ceiling to about 8 feet. It's all unfinished. The foundation walls are completely open, although they're totally covered with spray foam insulation. No matter what, Brock will be using the in-law suite as his theater for at least the next year or two. But do we think either of the spaces in this basement would work for making a good theater? Basically, should he pour all of his effort into the in-law suite as his permanent theater, or should he plan on his basement eventually being his dedicated theater, meaning that he should only go for small and inexpensive improvements in his in-law suite for now? Do I need to keep reading all this stuff? Because this is
no, these are things that we're going to be consideration as we answer.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, what it basically comes down to is if you look at the two halves of his basement, could he use one side or the other as his dedicated theater? Of course, he would finish it and
yeah, you'd have to finish it for sure. But you're looking at 8-foot ceilings like max here.
Yeah, which is fine. So nothing wrong with that.
I be honest with you, it kind of depends on what he wants. It's hard to answer that question without knowing how many people he's going to sit down there. I like the 19 by 13. It's a little bit more cozy, and it to me it feels like it would be a little bit easier to fill with sound and to finish off in a way that's just a nice rectangle.
Yeah, well, not only that, if you go to the other side, which I can see the appeal in that it is a larger space to begin with, but the way those support columns are laid out, dude. You'd either end up with something blocking somebody's sight line or something like right where you want to put a speaker or want to put a seat. It's going to be really inconvenient to try and build around those support columns. So I would say go on the 19 by 13 side. That is a sufficient size. Granted, I don't think you'd want to have more than, say, a 3-seater couch as the width of your seating if you want walkways on both sides. Now, nothing says you have to have a walkway on both sides of your seating.
When you get into my home theater, my seat is, it's got 3 seats, but you can fit 5 people on that bad boy.
Yeah.
Easily. 5 full-grown people.
But I mean,
there's probably a 2.5-foot walkway on one side, and when you open the door, ain't nobody walking nowhere. So you have to walk, but our door opens in, but the door is recessed about a foot, maybe a little bit more than a foot.
Yeah.
So that gives me a little bit extra room there. But if you had your door opening out, you could put a 10-foot couch in here, and then you have a 3-foot walkway.
Well, not quite, because right now in his email he gave the exact dimension, so it's just a little bit shy of 13 feet wide without any finishing. Yeah, so that's actually one of his considerations. He's like, if he goes with a dedicated theater in his basement, he's worried about the width, because he was like, if I go in the smaller room, how much space is he going to lose from the finishing process? He asked if he could maybe move the columns or work around them. Don't do that. Definitely don't try to move the columns. That is major construction.
Right.
Trying to work around them, I don't think is worth it. So on the other side there, where you've got a little bit less than 13 feet to begin with, now, thankfully, this is all exterior wall, right? I mean, other than what's beside his staircase and maybe closing off the very back of the room, the other 2 walls are completely exterior walls, which means all you're putting up is basically framing to hold the drywall. Yeah. They don't have to be super soundproof, because who cares if some of the sound leaks into the ground around your foundation. So you could go with 2x3s instead of 2x4s for your framing. You can save an inch that way, because 2x3s are fine for just being the framing holding up your drywall. You put a little bit of insulation in there, just the super cheap pink stuff, whatever. a single layer of regular drywall is fine for those walls. So you're
Right.
taught, and so you would have 2x3s, which are actually 2.5 inches deep. You would want a 1 inch gap between the already excellent spray foam insulation that's already all over your exterior walls. 1 inch gap between that and the frame. So that's 3.5 inches plus half-inch drywall. That's 4 inches on those two walls. So you haven't lost very much there. And then on the stairway side, if you want to make it soundproof, I would just put up either sound clips with hat channels and maybe 2 layers of drywall. I don't even know if that's necessary. I think sound clips with hand channels and hat channels and 1 layer of drywall, or a resilient channel and 1 layer of drywall would be fine for your interior walls, because it's not actually going into another room, it's going to the stairwell.
And he's looking at this ceiling section here is
Uh-huh.
going to be lower because of this ducting. Well, why
But you
not
could
leave
do
it the way it
soffit.
is
Yeah.
and just do a drop ceiling there?
Oh,
And
you could do that too, yeah.
you know what I mean? Therefore, you're not having to finish the roof at all, really.
The ceiling, yeah.
The
Yeah,
ceiling.
just
You're just
drop
gonna
ceiling. Yeah, that's
just
very
gonna put a drop
convenient.
ceiling in it. It's very convenient. It's going to save you some cost as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
And then up there, you can put as much insulation as you want.
Yeah. Now, if you did only drop ceiling, I would suggest going for the actual acoustical ceiling
Yes.
tiles, not the
Yes,
super
yes.
cheap tiles. So that does increase the price over a standard drop ceiling, but
Still
it's
gonna be
still
cheaper than
yeah, then doing 2 layers of drywall with resilient channel and all that, and building soffits around everything like that. If you just did, yeah, a drop ceiling there, you'd still have access to all that HVAC and electrical that might be
That's
running
right.
up there, which is a great thing to have. You go
You
for
don't
the
have to worry.
acoustical
You
ceiling
don't have to
tiles.
worry about running wires ever again up there.
That's
It's
right.
just
Yeah, super easy.
super
Pop a
easy to run
tile.
wires. Pop a tile off, look around, grab the wire, pull it down. You're good to
Yeah.
go.
So
Uh,
I think we're in agreement. We think that using that side of the room in your basement as your dedicated theater would be a good idea.
if you decide to go with the basement, because
Okay.
there is still the option of staying upstairs.
Okay.
So he says if his theater is going to stay in the in-law suite, he'd like to end up with 7.2.4 Atmos setup. So how could he achieve that with the uneven ceilings and the skylights, fan, and can lights and all that garbage? Honestly, it's a little bit more difficult to do everything you're talking about and have it look clean the way you want it to be. But the reality is, it's still the same. It's all the same measurements. You just find the point on the wall where it intersects.
Yeah.
So if you wanted your speakers, your Atmos speakers, to be 3 feet in front of you, or let's say 5 feet, 5 feet in front of you and 5 feet behind you, or doing top fronts and top rears or something like that. Let's say you were going to do that. We're not saying that that's what's going to happen, but let's say you were top fronts, top rears, right? Well, you say, okay, well, 5 feet in front of me would be there, then, but the wall angles down in front of me. So where on that wall would intersect with that line that would go to the end of that 5 foot in front of me? Then put a speaker there. And for me in this room, it makes the most sense because that's probably right there on the ceiling. It's going to be almost impossible to run wires and all that stuff. Get flat wire, paintable flat wire.
Yeah.
Run that right up the wall
On the
and then
surface, yeah.
on the surface, and then put tiny speakers like HT Super Zeros. Get the little
Little Birds.
little birds, whatever.
I mean, I think Little Birds would be a great choice with a weird uneven ceiling like this, because you can angle them like any angle you want with that pivot mount. So that makes it quite simple. You could angle it so that even though your roof is at an angle, they're aiming straight down if you want them to, or you can aim them a little bit toward your seat, whatever you want to do. Pivot mount makes it simple.
Right.
So, yeah.
So for me, there's no reason why you can't keep that upstairs. So the question becomes, now, as far as the downstairs, you're looking at now probably, to be safe, a 9-foot or 9.5-foot couch. And that's what we did when my wife and I went. We decided we could fit a 10-foot couch in here would be the max. And we found a 10-foot couch that sat everybody and had all the features that we wanted and everything. Okay. You just go to a furniture store and say, I'm not looking for anything that's not, and go to the home theater section.
Yep.
Because they're all modular. Like, what you see is not what you get. You can say, I want 3 seats that look like this seat right here. So I want one that has an arm on the left, one that has an arm on the right, and one in the middle. And you add it together, you're like, that's 9 feet. And you're good. Or you can get the bigger ones, or you can put armrests in between or whatever and make it a little bit longer, or whatever you want. So for me, what I would do is shove one side up against the wall as far away from
you could do that,
and then that's the good seat ends up becoming, if it's like a 3 or 4 seater couch. Let's say it's a 4-seater couch, but it's there's smaller seats. It's going to be the 3rd seat away from the wall.
Yeah.
Will be your
I mean, you need a
best seat.
walkway on at least one side, But as long as you
But
have
you
it on,
don't
you
need it
don't
on
have to
both.
have it on both. You don't have to. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be symmetrical. And with a 19-foot length to the room, you could fit 2 rows of seats if you wanted to. You could even have a 2-foot false wall, then sit 10 feet away for your first row, another 5.5 to 6 feet behind that, which puts the second row very close to the back wall, but that's your secondary spillover seating anyway. So if you
The
wanted 2
guy
rows of seats,
clearly,
you could.
he clearly in his current theater has 2 seats that are
Oh
spillover
yeah,
seating
yeah, not
or
not
that are not
optimal at all.
optimally placed. Shove that second row of seats on the back wall.
Yeah,
Call it a day.
yeah.
To me that makes the most sense.
I mean,
But
I think that the basement, if you want to do it like dedicated, you
yeah,
can basically have a perfect rectangle. There's no reason you can't build a
yeah.
perfect rectangle in that space. So I think it's very viable to do it in that 19 by 13 side.
But I don't want to say that you can't do either one. You have the
Sure.
option of doing either one. So the question becomes, what are you really looking for? You look at,
Yeah.
how does your theater sound right now? Are you really happy with what you have? If you're really happy with what you have, then and all you really want to do is add Atmos, then there's certainly a much less expensive than building out your basement way of adding Atmos to your home theater.
That's true.
That's certainly doable. But if what you really want is like, I want a dedicated theater, I want more sound control, I want the better bass in there, I want to have a bigger screen, which you cannot have in the current setup.
Yeah, the current setup makes it tricky for the screen for sure.
Then the basement is the way to go.
Yep.
So really the question then comes back on you. What do you really want? And is what's worth it to you? So I just want to make sure that we're not, obviously from our perspective, the dedicated home theater, it gives you the bigger screen, gives you more, gives you better acoustics and everything else, makes everything a little bit easier. But it's a lot more expensive. So we're not the ones spending money. So you need to come to us and tell us what really you decided to do. So he says his current subwoofer is the HSU VTF 15H. It's a first generation. So it's on the Mark III or whatever the heck it is now. He'd like a second sub for more uniform bass. His wife would like something smaller. What would we recommend? Okay, something smaller. I don't know how big is this. It's a 15. It's probably one of those with 3 ports in the front or something like that.
Well, it's got the 2 sort of triangular ports in the bottom corners. Is what
that one.
Yeah,
I don't like the way I never liked the way that one looked. It looks funny. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for smaller footprint, the cylinders are the way to go from SVS, and that 12
plus.
12 plus or whatever is probably applicable to this. Now, if you're in a 19 by 13 foot room, I mean,
you don't really need that level of output.
You don't need that much bass. You don't need that much subwoofer. You don't need as much subwoofer as you currently own. In fact, in the room he's got right now, he doesn't need that much bass either.
This is also true. Yeah. No, I mean, none of the even if you went for the big room, you don't really need a 15H in there, and don't go for the big room because of those support columns.
Right.
So yeah, you don't really. Although he already has it, so
yeah,
and
it's already got it. It is a nice sub, but if you sold it and got 2 smaller subs, for a similar or a price, you can maybe save some space that way as well. Possibly. So I mean, if you I forgot what his current room is. I need to scroll up to figure out what it is. What is his current room? His current room is
so the in-law suite.
Yeah.
Well, where are we here? 21 by 14.
Oh geez, 21 by 14. You could get away with a 1000 series from SVS.
I don't know. 2000 would be nice, but
I mean, obviously, if he's got as much bass as he's got right now, he's probably going to want the bigger one. But the 2000 series of sealed box 2000, you'd have 2 small subs.
You could, yeah. So I mean, his current sub is about 18 wide and 26 deep and about 2 feet tall.
Big.
So now, if you wanted slightly smaller, as in 22 inches deep instead of 26, and 17 inches wide instead of 18, and 23 inches high instead of 25, you could go over to Power Sound Audio and get one of their 15Vs, because that's very comparable in terms of output and price. But I don't know if that is significantly smaller enough to satisfy what your wife is going for. I agree that the cylinder is probably, like, if you're just like, I want something that can equal the output of the VTF 15H, then the PC 12 Plus from SVS, but although that's more expensive, it's a couple $100 more expensive.
Yeah.
But it gives you the cylinder form factor, which definitely takes up less floor space. So either do that or possibly downsize to 2 smaller subs.
Yeah, and if you end up doing the downstairs stuff too, remember, you're going to be able to put one of these subs behind the If you do a false wall, you
If you
could
do
do
a
it
false
behind.
wall.
You could do it behind the false wall.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, yeah. So, as mentioned, he'll be using the in-law suite for a while, no matter what. So, what he'd like to install the 6 acoustic panels that he already owns, if possible. Could he use panels to cover the skylights, maybe with some sort of magnetic system, so they can be removed if desired? Where should his other panels go? First, reflection points, and any suggestions for covering the big window? Just heavy blackout curtains, maybe. For the windows, yes, just blackout curtains are the way to go.
Oh, yeah.
They're not that expensive. The mine have like rings, and you just roll them on there. And yes, you get a little light at the top and the bottom, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. That as far as covering the skylights, you don't want to 100% cover them because you don't want to have like some sort of condensation going on.
Yeah, you do need the air to still be able to get in there. Although, I mean, these are just acoustic panels, so you're not stuffing them into there, so it should be fine. It should be
so
fine.
if you install some sort of rare earth magnet, neodymium magnet or whatever on there, so that just snaps into place.
I don't know if I go magnet. I just go hooks, man. Just hooks like Z clips.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason why you have. Yeah, there's no reason why you have to do. But I'm just saying. I mean, he could do it that way.
I guess. I wouldn't want to trust panels on an angled ceiling to magnets. So I just go 4 Z clips, man. The 4 corners of each panel.
Trust it to magnets. You got neodymium magnets, they ain't coming off, dude. Yeah. So you could do a couple of things here. Now, I don't know why you're trying to cover your skylights in particular. If it's a light-based thing, then if you're buying blackout curtains, just buy 1 more or 2 more, depending on how big those windows are, and just cover those windows, cover that area. Just literally like pull your TV forward a little bit and hang a curtain that just hangs down behind your TV and covering those 2 skylights, if that's really the issue. As far as panels, there's nothing in this room. So behind your couch, if at all possible, there's that hallway back there if you're facing the hallway to the right there, as close to the edge as you can go, I would put one there. I can't see if there's a light switch or something. It's very hard to see. There's some marks on that back wall.
Yeah.
That I can't quite see. So you could put some there. I would also consider putting something in the hallway if you could, because there's a lot of bass that's gonna be bouncing around back there, kind of willy-nilly. So I would do that. I would also corner trap that rear left corner. So behind your couch, and if you're facing the hallway, all the way to the right corner there, but it's really the rear left corner because your left speaker's back there, whatever.
Yeah.
I would bass trap that because that's really the only corner that you can do easily. The other thing that you can consider doing is moving your entire TV in this little stand thing forward a little bit, which I already kind of suggested for the blackout curtains. And then along that small half wall at the bottom there, just put panels across the whole bottom part of that, just to as sort of like corner trapping along the floor. That's what I would do.
All right.
One of the left wall at the first reflection point, right wall at the first reflection point, if you can. I can't really tell what the reflection points are.
Yeah.
Behind the surround speakers, maybe.
Yeah, I'd mainly focus on behind you, maybe some in front of you there. Yep.
Yeah. There we go. Mark is in the 3rd redesign of his home theater and suddenly has the urge to shake his rump as only the magic of tactile transducers can. He already bought a single AST2BF. I'm sorry, 4, not 2BF, 2B4 Aura Sound Pro bass shaker and a Dayton Audio SA70 subwoofer plate amp to drive it. Now he wants to buy 1 more bass shaker for another seat. Will the SA70 be enough to power both, or will he need a second amp? When I looked up the specs for your bass shaker, it says it takes like 50 or 60 watts.
Yeah, 50 watts max, and that's 4 ohms, so 50 watts into 4 ohms max.
And the SA70 puts out 70 watts at 4 ohms.
Yes.
It's like 40 watts at 8 ohms.
Yes.
So I mean, I would get a second amp, to be honest with you. I mean, it's probably going to be fine, depending on...
Yeah, it'd probably be fine driving 2 of them. I mean, you really don't need a ton of power for a bass shaker when it's 1 bass shaker for 1 seat. You really don't need a ton. So I'd say it's fine. I'd probably just wire them up in series because I don't want a 2 ohm load in particular. So I just wire them up in series. I'd say it's fine to drive 2 of them if it's like 1 shaker per 1 seat. Yeah.
Right. Depends on how much it's moving, I suppose. What if he wants to add a third or fourth shaker? Would he just wire them all in series to the lone SA70? A combination of series and parallel. At what point should he buy a second SA70 amp?
Once you have more than two.
I would think so. I mean, I honestly, I would probably err on the side of caution and just have an individual amp for each one myself, if that's what I was doing, because these amps are not that expensive. They're fairly inexpensive. Yeah. And it just ensures that you're not dealing with any sort of issues. So what he's talking about here, for those of you who don't understand, so when you wire something in series, it doubles the ohmage. So it goes
if you have two devices that are 4 ohms each, you now have a single 8 ohm load if you wire them in series.
So if you want to keep the load around what the amp is sort of rated for and that sort of thing, you can wire some in series and some in parallel, because parallel will half the ohmage, so it'll go down to 2 from 4 to 2.
Yeah.
So if you go up to 8 and then you half it, it goes back down to 4 and all this other stuff. So you can do tricks like that electrically to wire a bunch of stuff to one amplifier. I don't necessarily think I mean, I'm not an electrical engineer, and I'm sure there are people who listen to this who are saying, oh, so it's fine, or oh my God, you're going to set your house on fire. I don't know what the answer to that question is. So the answer to my answer is I personally would buy 1 amp per. Rob saying 1 amp for every 2 is probably fine.
1 amp for 2 I'd be fine with, but I wouldn't try to drive 3 or 4 with one of those amps.
So he's asked, should he build a small box for the amplifier? He's not really sure where to put it other than maybe laying it on the shelf in his AV rack. Any better ideas? Yeah, I just put it right behind the couch or underneath it in some way.
He does have a seating riser. So I was like, could you like kind of build it
install it in the
riser?
Yeah, just cut a hole in your riser and shove it in there. Sure.
That was my thought.
I would. My thought was just tuck it someplace where you can't see it, because who cares? It's a plate amp.
Yeah,
it's not getting that hot. You don't have to worry about setting anything on fire. It's it's a switching amplifier most of the time. So
if I were gonna do anything, I would maybe, like, if you just wanted something where you could have it sort of like standing on its own, I would maybe make a frame out of wood that doesn't look too ugly. I would leave the back completely open. So I would just like make a frame that's basically the same perimeter as the plate amp itself. I'd secure the plate amp with its screw holes onto that frame, and that would be it. Yeah. Because now I have so it's not just like the raw electronics of the back of the plate amp in contact with anything. You have a frame to give it a little bit of depth, but that's all I would. And then you could just lay it flat in a rack, or you could stand it up against a wall or whatever. That's about as much as I would do for it, and make a frame.
The new layout has left some of his speaker wires about 10 feet short. He doesn't really want to rerun whole new wires, so would it be okay to use a simple twist splice and some electrical tape with the pieces of the same speaker wire to make up the extra 10 feet? Is it likely to cause issue with audio transmission or quality? The answer to that question is no. It's not likely to cause any issues that I can think of. I've done it before.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the proper way to do it. The proper way to do it is with one of our favorite things, the butt splice.
Yes, the butt splice.
The butt splice, which you can order packages of little butt splice connectors, which all these are, it's like a little tube with a little bit of metal in it. You put one end of the wire into one end, you put the other end of the wire into the other end, you crimp down on the little piece of metal that's inside to hold it tight, and then it has shrink tubing that you just run a hair dryer, or if you have an actual heat gun, you just run that over there and shrink down the shrink tubing, and there you have a nice secure connection. So the so-called danger of just twisting the wire together and putting electrical tape around it is that it will expand and contract due to the heat. Which
you wouldn't put like a wire nut on there if you were going to do it that way anyway. So
but you can end up potentially with some loosening of that connection over time, which could eventually lead to an arc. It's not impossible. So given how cheap little butt splice connectors are, and if you just want to pick up one or two, run down to your local car audio shop, because they have a gazillion. In fact, they'll probably just give you a couple if that's all you need, because they have a gazillion of them. So proper way, butt splice connector. That's it.
Butt splice.
Butt splice.
James. Butt splice. James has his theater area set up in his living room, but the rest of his house is pretty open, so he's dealing with something around a bajillion cubic feet. He said 10,000, but might as well be able to show you. He has a couple of Epic brand subwoofers. I'm sorry, sir. One of their dual 15-inch drivers, sealed models, plus another dual driver ported model. The ported model blew out and stopped working. And as we know, and Rob really knows,
who he is,
Epic went out of business, leaving a lot of complaining customers. The sealed model is still chugging along, though. He's using clip speakers, and he likes to crank his setup for both movies and music. His sealed Epic sub gives a nice chest kick, and it digs low. But the really low stuff doesn't stay as loud. The ported model that blew up used to play louder, but also sounded boomy. Again, sorry, sir. So James is looking for an upgrade. He wants it all. He wants it super loud, super low, and super clean. He'd rather overbuy since he only wants to make his purchase once and then have it be good for the space, for this space or any future spaces. And he's willing to spend upwards of $3,000. Rhythmic and Power Sound Audio both have big 18-inch models, even dual 18-inch driver models. SVS has their PB16 Ultra, but then there's the question of whether he should have a pair of subwoofers. Well, yeah, you should have a pair of subwoofers. We already have a subwoofer. I mean, but I honestly, I still think there's enough people out there who are interested in Epic that you could probably sell that Epic. You know, there's still people who drank the Kool-Aid and
did they ever?
Epic. And in full disclosure here, Rob drank the Kool-Aid a little bit himself.
It worked on me. It was one of my learning experiences.
That's right. We've all done it. We've all done it. Everybody, every single one of us has listening to this podcast or doing this podcast has gotten hyped on the hype. And
I bought a Monster cable power conditioner at one point. Worked on me back then. I was a teenager.
I can't honestly believe that. I can't remember ever buying a Monster product on purpose that I can think of. But I probably have bought some cabling here or there from time to time. Again, I was in college. So, as far as what if you a pair of speakers here, Power Sound Audio is probably one of my go-tos here. You're going to get a very big subwoofer that is. I mean, these are the same guys that started SVS, so I trust them
originally.
I trust them to be able to give you a sub that will play low and play loud and play, relatively cleanly. Not really cleanly, but have good performance, frequency response and everything else. So I could go with one of those 18-inch models from them. I think
yes. Power Sound Audio has a model called the V1801. So that is one of their single 18-inch driver models. Now, nicely, it's $1,400, which means you could get a pair of them for your $3,000 budget.
There you go.
Now, as far as its output is concerned, it falls basically, it's a little bit louder than the old PB13 Ultra that SVS used to sell, which is now replaced by the PB4000. It's not quite as loud as the 16 Ultra. So it's sort of in between those two, which is very, very loud output. And what's nice is you could get a pair of them, so even placing them across the room from one another, you get an additional about 3 decibels of output. So the pair of these V1801s should get you right around the same output level as, say, a single PB16 Ultra. That's sort of the output level that you're looking at with those. And I would think that's quite appropriate for a space. Now, if you want to go nuts, because he was like looking at the dual 15-inch vented rhythmic or the dual 18-incher from Power Sound Audio, because those things exist. If you want to get into that kind of territory, I would actually prefer that you get a JTR subwoofer.
Okay.
Because those are basically meant for outdoors. They have one which is their Captivator 2400 ultra low frequency. It's $2,500. But it can output 116 decibels from 2 meters away at 20 hertz. Okay? Which is louder than any of the subs we've been talking about. They're all around 113 decibels. So this thing is like twice as powerful as even the PB16 Ultra. Now, they have one that's even bigger, the 4000 ULF, which gets you to 119 decibels at 20 hertz, but that one's over $4,000. So if you want to go absolutely nuts, I could back a Captivator 2400. They have a smaller one, the Captivator 1400, but it's $2,000 and right about the same output level as the PB16 Ultra or the V1801. So since you can get a pair of V1801s from Power Sound Audio for your price range, that's kind of my number one choice for you. I mean, heck, if you discover that you don't really need them across the room for more uniform bass, you could stack them, and now you have a dual 18-incher that can get 3 decibels or 6 decibels louder in that case.
Right.
So I like the dual V1801s the most, but if you just want an earth-shattering sub, there is the Captivator from JTR.
Yeah, I don't think you should go for that one, but you do what you got to do, dude.
Yeah.
Michael on Facebook. Denon and Marantz have said that the firmware update to add Dolby Vision and HLG pass-through for older AV receiver models is now all set to be released in summer 2018. But Michael has connected his Oppo UDP-203 Ultra HD Blu-ray player to his Denon X4300H receiver, which then fed his LG C6P OLED. And when he plays a Dolby Vision movie, the Dolby Vision indicator pops up on his TV that seems to be in Dolby Vision mode. So he's missing something. Is his X4300H already passing through Dolby Vision somehow? I don't know. I don't have Dolby Vision, so
X4300H is passing through Dolby Vision. It is the ones from a model year prior. So it was the X6200, the X4200. On the Marantz side, it was the SR6010 and SR7010. Those are the models where they've been saying Dolby Vision is coming. It's summer of 2018 now. That's the date that they're saying. So those were, AV receivers that came out in, 2016.
Yeah.
But yeah, your 4300H, that one came out last year. That one already got the update. So you're not missing anything. Yeah. You're getting Dolby Vision pass-through. Hooray.
Me too.
You are.
I don't have it, but it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
Hold on a second here. Joe, hypothetical question for fun. If we had a completely unlimited budget, which designer would we hire to design our dream home theater? Joe's options are Tony Grimani.
Yeah.
Russ.
Anthony Grimani, yeah.
Whatever. Russ Hershelman, Dennis Erskine, Lloyd Toole, Theo Calamarcas, whatever, Keith Yates, whatever, and Rich Green. Who else will we add to the list? Rob, go.
All right. You know what? If I had a completely unlimited budget, I would talk to Wilfred Van Balen, the guy who does Oro 3D. Because the studio that he built for himself, for his recording studio and mastering studio that he built for the Oro 3D stuff, that is a dream room. It's like literally, when I say tons, literally tons of poured concrete. The entire thing is on big springs to separate it from the ground below. It's like when we say room within a room, it's like a bunker within a bunker. All right, so he's got like I think the glass window, because it is like a control room setup. I think I think he said it's like 18-inch thick glass or something like that. Like, this thing is a bomb shelter, man. Now you said completely unlimited budget. Let's go nuts. So I'm gonna go talk to Wilfred Van Balen now for all the stuff inside of my theater. I would want to talk to the JBL synthesis guys from Harman. That's who I would want to have in there. I'd want to have Todd Welty and Sean Olive. I'd want Kevin Vakes from Revel in on this. Those are the guys I'd like to talk about all the gear inside, and for building the room, I'd want to talk to Wilfred.
There you go. I don't. None of these, I wouldn't do any of this stuff. If I had unlimited budget, I'd still do it myself. I'd be honest with you.
Yeah. I'd still want to do a lot. And I'm not like, one of the reasons I wouldn't hire, say, Dennis Erskine, not that he doesn't make beautiful theaters, but he likes to hide all the equipment. I want to see all the equipment, which, not that Dennis couldn't do that. Obviously he could, but why would I hire a guy whose expertise is hiding stuff behind beautiful things when I want to see it? So, yeah.
And I'm sort of... I'm sort of kind of the same way. I've seen a lot of theaters that look really super clean and really super nice, and like, or have themes and stuff like that. The Bat Cave or whatever.
Right.
And that's just not me.
Yeah,
that's not me. I don't like on.
I take the grills off my speakers so I can see the drivers.
I'm the same way, and I would do it in here, but it's a pain to get these grills off of these Veris Grants. So I would end up not. I would have. Obviously, I would get a designer. I would probably talk to a couple of people and do some research to figure out which one I think would do what I'd want. But I would spend more time just listening to speakers and getting, doing all that stuff. For me, the fun of it is coming up with what you think is perfect and then implementing it. Now, do I want to do the construction myself? Absolutely not. But I also don't want like this perfectly clean, everything hidden, nothing, it looks like it's too nice to eat popcorn in, you know what I mean? My theater right now currently has 3 blankets. I can see a box of tissues, a computer charger lying on the floor, which I have no idea what it's from. I know for a fact my 14-year-old son's shoes are on the floor behind the main couch, and my middle son lost his belt in here for 3 days. It was just on the floor. He just didn't look for it. So, that's the kind of theater I have, and that's the kind of theater I want. Carl. Carl asks, what do we think of Bose's augmented reality platform, audio augmented reality platform, excuse me, rather than focusing on overlaying video information? Bose is proposing overlaying audio information that responds to what you're looking at, where you are via GPS, and how your head is moving. Do we foresee audio AR being just as, or perhaps even more useful than video AR? I don't think that you can separate the two. I don't see how you can. You know, yes, Bose, of course, is going to be talking more about how, you know, whatever. It's like Apple, you know, like, hey, we can unlock stuff with our face. We just invented it. I'm like, no, you didn't. And Bose did not invent audio AR. You know, AR is by definition is where you're looking. I mean, we see this in, heck, this happened last night in the movie at the very beginning of Thor Ragnarok. There's the part where he's talking with the big flaming dude with the sword. When the camera's pointing at him, you can hear the sword coming from one speaker. When the camera flips sides and the sword's dragging on the ground from coming from a different area of the room, that is audio, you know, AR. That's what it is, and that's what you should be experiencing. So if you have VR video video augmented reality, VAR, I guess we would call that. You can't not have audio augmented reality. You have to, or it just won't seem real.
Yeah, it'll be weird to have video overlays without any additional audio whatsoever.
Right.
You're normally going to, I mean, even if it's just bings and chimes and stuff,
right,
you would think you'd want something to go along if it's going to be some kind of interface or alert system or something like that.
I mean, and they're coming up with things like, oh, we're going to do this via what you're looking at and via GPS. Well, yeah. What do you think Google Glass was doing?
That's how augmented reality works.
Big deal. It's like, you know, if you didn't use that, what else were you going to use? I mean, accelerometers, it's still basically the same thing. It doesn't make any sense. So yes.
Well, I mean, that said, I have no problem with as many companies as want to getting on all the various aspects. I mean, yes, augmented reality is definitely going to be a thing that we're all going to use in the future. I have zero doubt of that. I mean, we already are to a fairly large extent, mostly through our cell phones.
Sure.
But you know, eventually some interface. I mean, we're going to have the little contact lenses that you can wear that put, you know, overlays on top of stuff eventually. So, yeah, I mean, the audio is going to be a side of that. I have zero problem with Bose being a part of that equation and working on it. Maybe they can use some of their noise canceling stuff to help isolate certain sounds, because they are very good at the noise canceling stuff. There's no question about it. They got a ton of patents on that. Yeah. So, yeah, great. The more the merrier. That's my opinion.
Yeah, we only stop thinking more the merrier when it comes time to come out with a format, and then they start arguing about whose format's best. What we really want is just research on how to do it best, and then have somehow
maybe actually have the patent system work the way it was designed, where the patent does expire eventually, and everyone else can start using the thing.
Right. Yeah. Right. Chris is tempted to buy the buy one get one deal buy one get one deal at that Accessories for Less is running on their Focal Superbird speakers. But if you bought a pair, he'd want to use them as overhead speakers. Can the Superbirds be ceiling mounted, and would it be a good idea? Anything could be ceiling mounted if you try hard enough.
Yes. Okay. You can ceiling mount some towers if you really went for it.
If you really wanted to, you could do it. And I think I actually talked about that one time on this podcast about hanging towers from a ceiling.
Well, I know we've talked about subwoofers, ceiling mounts.
Yeah, we've done that. But I'm talking, this was back with Dina. This is how long ago that was. Right. I was like, the guy didn't want to have anything on the floor, but, you know.
Oh, yeah, hanging chain
the towers, but you'd have to hang them upside down so the tweeters would be at the right level. Like, you could do it. It's insane, but you could do it. It would look very strange. The Superbirds they are very big. They are quite
they're
large.
Bigger than you think. The birds are bigger than you think.
The birds surprised me. Now, I'm used to them now, but when I first got them, I was like, these things are too big to be on my ceiling. Now that they're up there, I'm not so worried about them. But for a long while, I was like, I have made a horrible mistake here. The Superbirds are way too big. But who cares? They're buy one, get one. So
Yeah, well, because I mean, well, even with the buy one get one, a pair of them ends up being the same price as a pair of birds, which is $100 more than a pair of little birds, which are the real ones I would recommend
you
for
would
ceiling
probably
mounting.
suggest. Yeah, that was
Yeah, the little birds are very appropriate for ceiling mounting. So the super birds, they do come with a wall mount bracket because they're meant to be wall mounted.
Right.
It gives you the ability to, so if they were mounted on a wall as normal, it gives you the ability to pivot them left and right a little bit, but they don't really have any up down tilt to them. So if you mounted that to the ceiling, and you could, because there's no reason you couldn't put a wall mount connected to your ceiling instead, you have a little bit of adjustment from what would be the side to side, but no forward backward tilt. That's okay. Atmos speakers are supposed to fire straight down anyway. But they're heavy enough that I would definitely want to secure them either into joists or have the blocking that you would put in between a couple of joists and secure to that. Maybe I would do it with toggle bolts, but I certainly wouldn't do it with just wall anchors. I wouldn't trust just wall anchors to hold them on the ceiling.
Right.
So I would go at a minimum toggle bolts, if not directly into blocking or
I always try to go directly into a ceiling joist or a 2x4 of some, even if it's only one.
That's right.
Even if you only get one screw into one of them, try to get one screw into one of them if you can.
But honestly, if your goal is to put speakers on the ceiling, I'd go for the little birds. That's the appropriate choice. Dan
would like our take on a couple of products. A 12-pack of inexpensive 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 inch thick studio form with a wedge design. And Aftershokz Trex Air bone conduction headphones. Okay, so the first one is a 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 inch thick studio form with a wedge design. Now, I have looked at this, and you will look at this and think to yourself, and because I've thought the same thing, this looks like something that should be in a recording studio, therefore it will be good for my home theater. The answer to that question is no, it is not.
It's almost useless. It is for looks. If all you wanted was the aesthetic of it, okay.
Yeah, it's not really doing much, and for $21, which is what it ships right now with Prime, you better spend that money on literally anything else. So
raw insulation. I would rather buy a package of raw insulation.
So we feel very, very strongly that this is a waste of money. This is not really. This is going to knock down the highest of the highs. So
barely even that.
When you see these things, it's a lot of times they have them like around a microphone for people who are doing stuff in a room. A lot of times those same people have that same setup in a literal closet.
Yeah, even then they'd be going for at least the 2-inch thick, not the 1-inch thick.
Yeah, with clothes still in it. So you're like, okay,
the clothes are doing more than the studio.
Are doing more than the rest of it.
Foam is it's next to useless. You want?
I love it.
Material.
So I mean, every once in a while, I'll see somebody that are like, oh yeah, I've heard this even recently. Oh yeah, I've got this new thing, and I bought a bunch of egg cartons because I'm gonna put egg cartons in. I'm like, dude, can I have some of those eggs at least? Because I mean, if you're gonna throw away all the eggs, you really got ripped. Now, the Aftershokz Trex Air bone conducting headphone or bone conduction headphones. I've used something like this before at a running store. So what these are really used for is they don't go in your ears. They go right before your ears. So they'll go behind your head, around your ears, but they don't go into your ears. And the idea here for these things is that you get the sound, but you can still hear everything from the outside, which is important while you're running. They sound like garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking for sound quality, garbage, I think, would be the most accurate way I would describe the sound quality of bone conduction headphones. Clearly, this is not the way we were meant to hear sound, which is why your voice sounds weird when you speak to yourself. When you listen back to it, you're like, that's not what I sound like. Everybody's like, yeah, of course it is. That's exactly what you sound like, because it sounds completely different. You are hearing yourself through bone conduction, mostly, whereas everybody else is hearing you through air conduction, which is how it's meant to be. So these are great headphones if you're a runner and you're trying to stay safe and you want to make sure that you're not going to get run over by a car. But if you want to listen to music, then you should actually get headphones, especially for $179, which is what these things cost.
Like, they're quite good and effective for giving you a beat. If this is for working out, rock climbing, being at a gym or whatever, and what you want is a beat to keep you motivated. They're pretty darn good at that. But yeah, the sound quality of music as a whole, I like one of the reviews saying it takes some getting used to. Like that is a very polite way of saying it.
Garbage. It's another way of saying it. They sound like garbage. But they're not there to sound good. They're there to give you some music, a little bit of your music, and a lot of ability to hear everything around you. These things are unless somebody comes up with some technology that is beyond what we have right now, like considerably light years beyond what we have right now. These are a fad that will go away very quickly. Bob's theater is set up in his open concept living room. This is a theme tonight. The living room is roughly 18 by 16, but it's open to another 31 by 9 for the kitchen and dining area. The ceiling is 7'8" throughout. Overall, the space is sort of L-shaped, and Bob is sitting quite far away, a little over 16 feet from his 65-inch LG OLED. He has an L-shaped sofa and a recliner that faces the TV. So, yeah, this is like a traditional house. This is a big old L-shaped couch, like if you go to those places where they got that big fabric covered couch that's in the sort of it's got a nice L curve to it. It's got a little curve there. This is good. And he's sitting a bajillion feet away from a 55, 60-inch TV. It looks
65
like 65. So it's way too small, and he's got the world's smallest speakers too. They're so small. Anyway, so here we go. He has upgraded components of his system over the years, but he has continued to use a 5.1 JBL speaker package with a JBL SAT 10 speakers, which I have experience with, and a JBL Bass 15 subwoofer, which I do not. I think I had the 12 of that, but it broke. It was my father's, actually. He is getting the itch to hear Atmos now that he has an Ultra HD Blu-ray player and the HDR capable display, but he has never actually heard Atmos in person before. He doesn't have a large budget, so if he was going to do this upgrade, he wants to make it happen for a low price. He wouldn't feel comfortable making holes in his ceiling himself, so he isn't particularly keen on the idea of speakers in or on his ceiling, as he'd need to pay somebody else to do that for him. Side wall mounting any speakers isn't going to work because of the layout of the room. So if he's going to install Atmos speakers, he's thinking either upward firing or mounting them as high as he can on those front and back walls. What do we think would be best? And perhaps even more importantly, do we think that it would even be worth it? Remember, that he has no frame of reference when it comes to what Atmos is supposed to sound like. So will he notice the upgrade? Will it sound the way it should? Okay, first of all, your front speakers are absolutely fine. You could probably mount them from your ceiling with a thumbtack. So if you are uncomfortable mounting speakers from your ceiling, don't be. You're
talking about taking the JBLs he already owns,
yes,
and mounting those up high on his wall on the ceiling, even
on the ceiling. Yes, the speakers he currently has, putting them up there. You are sitting probably too far away, in my estimation, from a Let's take Dolby at their word. Shall we? And pretend that they really are bouncing sound off the ceiling and it's not some sort of phase trick thing.
Yeah.
You are sitting too far away for bouncing to work. You are not sitting too far away.
For the front.
Yeah. You are not sitting too far away for a phase thing to work, theoretically. You would need whole new speakers, and they would need to be further apart than they currently are. But yeah, so I have I believe me, sir. Let me tell you how the easiest way to make this thing work is. What you need to do is find the place on your ceiling where you would like the speakers to hang from. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take a drill and you're going to drill a hole in your ceiling. Now, I'm assuming you have an attic in this house. Okay, you're going to drill a hole in your ceiling where you want. You're going to take a very small drill bit and drill a very small hole. Then you're going to take a piece of very stiff wire or a coat hanger that you've stretched out. You're going to shove it through that hole till it sticks up through the insulation like a foot or so you can see it as you're going through your attic. Then you will know where your speaker is to be hung from. From there, you can kind of get an idea. You want to get an idea of where your joists are. You want to get someplace close to a joist there. You're going to hang the speaker from that joist using just regular old wood screws. You don't need anything special here. you're going to have to get a mount of some sort depending on what those JBLs have. I thought they are very compatible with just
Pretty
like
sure
every
those
kind of
have
mount.
just a keyhole mount on the back of them. So
Yeah, so you could maybe just put a screw up there and just keyhole them in, but you would probably want to get a specific mount for it so that you could do some adjustments if you needed to. You would drill it right in there, and then you run the wire. You go up into your attic, running the wire, taking the wire with you, and then take it and just wrap it around that little piece of wire or whatever you put up through there, and then pull it back through. You have now just run a wire to that spot.
now, I mean,
It's really not that hard.
obviously, lots of people might not have the mobility to be able to go into their own attic or whatever. So, but what I would say, if your seat is going to stay where it is, you could certainly try top middles, just having those mounted on your back wall, because your seats are pretty close to your back wall right now.
Are they really? I can't see the seats on the back wall.
If you look at the one where you can see the curve of his seat and you can see the recliner, those seats are close to the back wall. So you could have top middles installed and try just in this case, 5.1.2 setup to start.
Right.
Just to see if the speakers more or less directly above you, they're ever so slightly
Again,
behind you
you
and
could use
above
those
you.
same speakers you have up front, so that would work.
For sure. So you could quite easily do that. And then if you're like, hey, I kind of like this overhead effect that I'm getting from just these two speakers, then for your what would end up having to be called front heights, I would not have them on the front wall just up high. That's too far away. And I would not try the upward firing ceiling bounce thing. I would mount your front height speakers in the correct locations, which would be about maybe 6 feet in front of your seating location. That's where you would mount them on the ceiling. And if you cannot do it yourself, that is not, there are lots of people you could hire to do that. Just a couple of speakers into your ceiling.
That's not. It's really, it shouldn't cost you that much.
That's right.
It shouldn't cost that much. So they just have to run the wire to the location, basically what I just said, and then down the wall into the wall bay right behind your receiver, where your
equipment lives. Yeah. So I would start with a 5.1.2 by mounting on your back wall and above you. Give that a try. If you like those results, consider adding 2 speakers on your ceiling. That's what I would suggest.
He'll have to buy some new speakers regardless if he does Atmos, the Atmos upgrade. So do we think his JBL speakers are still up to the task of being his mate? No. Or perhaps he should use 4 out of 5 of his JBL speakers as his wall-mounted Atmos speakers and upgrade his 5.1 speaker package. Again, he's looking to keep the price low, so what we suggest, front 3 speakers, replace your front 3 speakers. Everything else is, I think, fine. Because you're sitting close enough to him.
He might end up using 4 out of the 5 JBLs as his overhead speakers, in which case he would basically need 5 new speakers around. I would like to upgrade that sub too.
Oh, yeah. The sub absolutely has to go too as well. But your front 3 speakers have to go. So you want to take those front 3 speakers and get rid of those. Just hold them because like we said, we could be using those for things. Yeah. So we can take the center channel and not worry about that. You could just take it someplace. You're going to use your front left and rights that you're using right now as your first overhead speakers. And I do agree with Rob that even if you were sitting in the middle of the room, I would go with front middles to start with, because if you're only going to mount 2 speakers to start with, go ahead and mount those 2 and then see if it makes enough of a difference for you to care about it. And then you go on with your life from there. Then, the speakers I like, you're sitting quite far away. So you need something that can handle some power and give you some output. And whenever we think of stuff like that, we'll often think of horn-loaded speakers. So if you were into something that looked like an ugly box, you could get the HSUs.
Yeah.
Those ones would work, I think, pretty well. Of course, Klipsch, if you want to buy something locally and you don't want to do something online, you want to go listen to them, you could go listen to some Klipsch. I would not get Klipsch from their entry-level, whatever, Icon line.
No, don't get those. Get the reference series would be fine.
The reference speakers would be fine. Yeah, you don't have to go crazy.
Yeah, the name reference sounds like it's high up the line, but
that's
reference is like
level.
That's their entry. Yeah, because then there's reference Premiere above that, and then reference 2 above reference Premiere. So reference is like kind of their entry. I agree. I think the HSUs would be a great choice in here. The HB1 Mark IIs, horn loaded. I also think RBH's new impression series would be a good here. They're not as efficient, but they are very high power handling. One thing I really like about RBH is they actually put protection on their tweeters. So it's really, really hard to blow up an RBH tweeter because they actually protect them, which not enough speaker manufacturers do that. AVRant does it as well, so that's nice.
Yeah.
Now, if you were like, I just want to get a 5.1 package, and I still want them to be small, and I still want it to be affordable, and I would like to get a subwoofer at the same time, taking a look at RSL would be not a bad idea, because they have some nice 5.1 or 5.2 speaker packages. They're pretty compact speakers, not as small as your current JBLs. They're bigger than those, but they're still quite compact. And that Speedwoofer 10 that they sell is a pretty nice $400 sub. You know, so it would be an upgrade from what you have without going insane.
Yeah.
So RSL, RBH, HSU, Klipsch, those are our suggestions to you.
Yeah. You'll need an Atmos receiver as well. Which one do we recommend? Well, you're going to need 5.2.4.
Ideally, yeah. Just
to make sure that you don't want to add, you don't want to buy a 5.2.2 max out, because then you'll end up
then you're stuck.
You'll have to if you decide to add some more speakers. So I mean, are the X3300 still on sale? Are those still?
Well, the X3300s tops out at 5.1.2.
Oh, do they really? So you get the 4300s then?
The 4300, yeah. So the 4300, X4300, you can still find refurbished ones for $800. Accessories for Less is out of stock right now. But One Call, which is another very good retailer, they sell through an Amazon marketplace or directly at onecall.com. They have refurbished X4300s for $800. Amazon only says, I think, 4 of them left in stock right now, so they're selling out, because it was 9 just a day ago. So people have found them apparently and are snapping those up. But yeah, X4300, that's what I'd go for.
Okay, sorry, I was looking something up. David. The headband on David's headphones broke for the second time. He's managed to go through 3 pairs of headphones in 8 years, 1 pair of Audio-Technica ATH T44s, and 2 pairs of Klipsch Status. I haven't heard those.
I don't know those.
He wants a closed back over-the-ear headphones. Cheaper is better. We like them to be more durable. Any suggestions?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm going to click on it right now and see. The ones that I have that I've been using are the Audio-Technica ATH M50s.
Right.
I think they were the S's back in the day for straight cable.
Okay.
But I have had those headphones since Dina was on this podcast. I no longer use them. I have given them to a friend who has a 16-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old son. And he uses them, and they all use them. It's sort of if you're in the home theater and we don't want to hear you watching Grey's Anatomy for the 14th time in a row, then we make you put on the headphones. They're $150 right now.
Okay.
The M50Xs they're just really super durable. I have no problems recommending those.
Now, I like to recommend the Sonys, the MDR 7506s. Those are the headphones. You'll probably find multiple pairs of them in every recording studio in the world. They're they are the workhorse. They are super durable. Now, they do have, unfortunately, the coiled wire. That's what they come with. It is possible to replace that coiled wire with a straight wire if you really want to. But $80 from Amazon for the MDR 7506s, I think that checks all the boxes. Those are like as durable as headphones are going to get. If you break those, you would have broken anything. So... And $80 gets you another pair.
Yeah. Yours are cheaper than mine, but whatever. So this is a different Justin B, because apparently we got more than one Justin not Bieber.
Well, we always have Justin not Bieber, so this is a different Justin not Bieber. Okay. Different Justin B.
Different. Justin's room is, what time is it? 14 feet wide by 21 feet long by 10 feet high, giving him 3,000 cubic feet to fill. He doesn't want just space. He wants to start at, oh my God, I can't breathe, and then back it down a little bit from there. Did you hear the subwoofers we were talking about before? Get one of those.
Unfortunately, JTR, right?
JTR.
That'll do it. That'll knock the wind out of you.
Get the Seaton submersive. Was that one called? The one that doesn't really exist or whatever?
There is the Seaton submersive. I'd get a JTR Captivator if you really want to do that.
Unfortunately, he's very limited in terms of where he can put the subs and how large they can be. They will have to live in the left and right rear corners and need to have a small footprint. And before we get excited and say cylinders, the PC2000 is the shortest cylinder that SVS sells, and those are too tall for the space he has. The SVS SB2000 is about the right footprint, and the L22 from Rhythmic would be about as tall as he could fit. His max budget is $1,000 per sub, so $2,000 total. What would be the solution here? The solution here is to spend $2,000 on one sub, because if you're putting them both in the rear corners, you're going to end up... I would get one sub, and
Really?
yeah, I
Two
don't
other
know.
I mean, you're going to have to do the trial and error phase thing, which is
I
part of
know.
my 12-step process. If you
Right.
look at the thing I'm going to try and copy and paste onto the website, is playing with the phase in trial and error. But I would still go for duals for sure, especially since they have to be small. And he wants all the
Yeah.
output.
So the back of his room must be very short. Why is the back of his room so short?
I
It
I
must
don't
be
know
on
what's going on.
It must be like one of these A-frame things where he's at an angle in the base in that
Or
attic
he's
or bonus room,
built
something
something
like that.
in back there or something. Who knows?
He's gonna try. Now let's just say the footprint had to be small. I was gonna say if the cylinder is the problem, you can always lay it down too. Don't forget about that. So
Yeah, but that makes a much bigger
uh,
footprint all of a sudden.
yeah, I don't know. That's why I said something about the footprint. I was just wondering, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know what you got, Rob.
So, I mean, the L22s from Rhythmic wouldn't be a bad choice. Those fit the budget. Those are a pair of 12-inch drivers in a sealed design, but you're pretty much going to have to go sealed here. I mean, the real answer, if you could afford it, would be something from JL Audio, because that
Right.
gets you the small with crazy output, but then you have to pay through the nose to get it.
What
So
about the E series from them? They do have
it's still
small
too
ones.
expensive.
Is it really?
It
I thought
really
they had
is.
like the E series were like they're the
Oh,
first one was under 1,000.
but that's the 8-incher.
Oh,
Yeah,
what's the 12? Is it 1,500?
it's like 1,500. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, JL Audio would be great, but it's expensive. So my top pick for you would be Power Sound Audio. Be one of their sealed models. It would be the S1500, which is $1,000 exactly for one of them.
Right.
Now that has the sort of because 3,000 cubic feet is on the high end of a medium-sized room or the very low end of a large-sized room. So output-wise, it should be able to handle, even though it's a sealed one. There's a 15-inch sealed. The question is it small enough? It's about the smallest 15-incher you can find. It's 17 by 18. So the SB2000 is roughly a 15-inch cube. So this is a couple inches wider and 3 inches deeper than an SB2000. Will that fit? Because that's not tremendously larger, but it still might be too low. But that would kind of be my top choice for you. Be an S1500 from Power Sound Audio, a pair of those, because that'll actually get you the kind of output that you're hoping for.
Yeah, this is sort of a really weird question, and it's we're not magicians. We can't come up with
Yes.
things that are that don't exist. So you're
Well,
asking
it's
us
the pick
not
three thing. You want small
right.
and loud and affordable. And I mean, $1,000 is a healthy budget. And if this was vented, this is no problem. But then it's going to be much physically bigger. So you want the small, powerful, and affordable. So we can do small and powerful with JL Audio, but then it's not going to be as affordable. The Power Sound Audio kind of strikes the best balance, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you're really having to go smaller, I would consider going with one JL Audio sub for now, and then getting the second one.
That's kind of
at a
what you'd
later
have
date.
to do. Yeah.
Because that would be that seems to be. I mean, if you've seen the inside of those subs, they're insane.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much bracing going on. There's like almost no room
and
for
it's
anything
like
else.
all magnet.
And it's just they're just insane subwoofers. So I would be. The problem I have here is that small space. So I mean, it gives us a really, really hard. It makes it very, very hard. If he goes to the various subwoofer manufacturers' website, they all post graphs of the frequency responses. But how useful are those for comparison? They all seem to use different scales in their graphs, and they're often showing multiple overlays to demonstrate different tuning EQ options. Should you spend this time trying to decipher these graphs, or is there a better way to be able to compare the performance of different brands of subwoofers? Well, the CEA or whatever it is measurements that everybody's taking these days are standardized.
Yeah,
it's a very standardized measurement, and Audioholics does it. And what's his name?
Database.
Database.
Josh Ritchie over at Database.
Josh Ritchie does it. So you should look for those. Look for CEA measurements and then compare those. That being said, in-room measurements going to be different. Corner loaded is going to be different. Your room's going to be different slightly. So
but
the reality,
CEA 2010 is standardized. One thing to be aware of, though, is that, so say Database and Audioholics, they list the CEA 2010 measurements as referenced to 2 meters. That's with the microphone 2 meters away. Whereas you are allowed to list it as 1 meter away, which in the case of the way CEA 2010 is conducted, if you list it as 1 meter away, you're essentially adding 9 decibels
Right.
not the normal 6 for the doubling of the distance, because it's all ground plane measurements. So you're actually adding 9 decibels. So you'll notice over at Power Sound Audio, they list it as reference to 1 meter away.
Right.
So just subtract 9 from those numbers, and you have the same numbers that Audioholics or Database would give you. So that is one thing to be aware of, just that it could be referenced to 1 meter or to 2 meter. But other than that,
you unfortunately don't have to worry about any of that, because you have too many restrictions on your subwoofer to care what the measurements are. There's going to be a handful that, if that or even the right size, that you can't just look at them and say, yeah, this one's not going to work. I mean, there's lots of bass modules that will fit into your space, but you know that the 8-inch driver and the 100-watt amplifier, without looking at any measurements whatsoever, isn't going to cut it. Is not going to pass muster with that. So there's only going to be a couple that even fit in there, and then it's going to come down to budget and whether or not the size works for you. So he cringes every time he hears us recommend Elite screens, especially their motorized screens. He bought a fixed frame from them, which was missing parts when they arrived, and it was a pain getting the necessary parts from their customer service. But he was really turned off when he bought an electric screen. The screen and its black backing were stuck together by excess glue and left black patches all over the screen the first time he rolled it down. The tab tensioning was, quote, a joke, unquote, in Justin's opinion, and never stayed taut, and even managed to get tangled in itself. But worst of all, their customer service made him jump through a lot of hoops, asking him to buy and replace parts himself, attempting repairs himself, and then send multiple photos and emails before finally replacing the defective product. This third screen arrived with the screen itself functioning, but the motor was defective, and again, Elite wanted him to attempt to repair it himself. So he's given up on them and is saving up for a Seymour AV instead. Well, that's very unfortunate.
It is. I hate to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that.
I do hate to hear that, and it's very. I mean, honestly. I mean, which one do I have? Do I have
Silver
Elite?
Tickets? You have Silver
I have
Tickets.
Silver Ticket. Now, I know that Clint over at I don't know who he works for now. He has Clint DeBoer. He has an Elite screens acoustically. I think his might be acoustically transparent screen in his home theater, and he loves it. He didn't have any problems with it whatsoever. I asked him about setup and stuff like that. He said it was easy. It was no problem. He didn't have any issues with it. So, I mean, these things are going to happen. Now, as far as the customer service is concerned, that is very worrying to me, and that's something that we're going to have to try to remember when we talk about them. Because if customer service is an issue and they are doing all this to you, that can be a cause for concern for people. Now, if they never have a problem with their screens, or they rarely have a problem with their screens, and if they have poor customer service, is maybe a chance some people want to take, because this is the first time I've really heard of people having an issue with Elite screens. But that being said, it's still something I'm going to be warning people about from this point forward.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough, because I mean we've recommended Elite screens quite a lot, and we haven't had a ton of these stories coming back to us.
Have we had any of these stories?
Yeah, this is kind of the first one, especially something this bad. And also, I don't actually know where Justin lives. I'm wondering if maybe there was a like a difficulty in getting service to him type of situation. I'm not saying that's the case, but it's also not.
We're not blaming the victim here.
No, gosh, no. Yeah, and I mean, it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be pulling hen's teeth to get service. And I've gone through service like that, and it is exceedingly frustrating, and I hate it. So yeah, it's unfortunate. I also don't want to just condemn all of Elite screens and never recommend them again, because we've recommended them a lot and haven't had a ton of really horrible stories coming back to us on that front. So, yeah, it's all taken under advisement,
Unfortunately, and I, as sort of a blanket statement, whenever you're dealing with a company that is selling a product that is significantly cheaper,
a very discounted price,
I kind of always go into it with the thought that I'm going to have to, if something goes wrong, it's going to be a pain to get it sorted out.
Well, it's a little bit like the Vizio thing, right? Like there are a handful of people who are like, how can you recommend Vizio? They have nothing but returns and problems. And it's true. There are a lot of returns on Vizios, and there are quite a few customer service nightmare stories from them. And then there's a whole bunch of people who had a really good experience with them too. And it's... I mean, sometimes it can literally be the individual on the other end of the customer service line. And it's not
to have
everybody.
Two different screens is, it makes me think it can't be just that one.
Well, heck, we've had people who've had multiple Denons go bad on them, and they're like, how can you recommend Denon, right? So, yeah, it's tough. Very sorry to hear that, though, Justin. I hate to hear that. It is taken under advisement. Yeah.
That's why with companies like SVS, where I feel like they are selling you a product at a very low price, RBH is the same way, selling you a product at a very low price, and they have fantastic customer service, are a rare thing that should be.
That's what makes it so easy to recommend when it exists.
So thank you very much for letting us know. Nick says the Wirecutter made their pick for an affordable 5.1 speaker package, and they chose the ELAC Debut Series speakers. What piqued Nick's interest was that they did a blind listening comparison. However, they also had the strange and very limiting caveat of only considering 5.1 speaker packages with the matching brand of subwoofer. So some brands weren't even considered, and in all cases, the sound being judged included the prepackaged sub. Nick is most interested in getting our take on one particular quote, though. Larger speaker systems almost always won against compact speaker systems, even with their volume levels matched. They were, with only a few exceptions, always more dynamic, meaning they could play more quietly without sounding dull and lifeless, and more loudly without sounding strained and distorted. End quote. Nick has seen similar comments before, but this time it was made based on blind listening. So what are our thoughts?
There's one clarification I want to make right away.
Okay, make the clarification before I give my thoughts.
Because when they're saying larger speaker systems versus compact speaker systems, they're not talking about bookshelf speaker systems versus tower speaker systems. They're talking about bookshelf speaker systems versus teeny tiny speaker systems.
Right.
All right, because I've seen this comment reflected with, this is why you should always buy towers. They're more dynamic. They sound better. They're fuller, all this type of stuff. That is not what they're talking about at the Wirecutter. They were comparing some of these, like little Bose cubes, that type of size. That is what they mean by compact speaker system. And I will agree, largely, many of those systems have a hole in the frequency response where the speaker can't play low enough to meet up with the top end of the sub.
Or high enough to get to the very high end anyways. They're
high enough to get to the very high end. They are lacking detail in a lot of cases. So,
one driver in a box. And they can't play the highest highs, they can't play the lowest lows within their range, and the subwoofer, which is usually substandard to begin with, can't meet them where they need to be met anyways.
Yeah, because they're talking about the ELAC debut speakers, they're talking about the bookshelf model, and to them that is a large speaker. Right? Which to many people it would be.
There's a lot of things. I mean, to consider, first of all, whenever I do speaker shootouts, I never have a subwoofer involved. I mean, unless the subwoofer is the
caveat. That really hurts this, in my opinion.
Well, and I understand. I don't have a problem with it on the face of it. This is a shootout for people who are going to buy their very first speaker package, and aren't going to consider buying a second subwoofer and want to buy everything all together, and that's fine.
Yeah, and Wirecutter heavily favors convenience and price.
Like, and that's
really
fine.
Heavily favors that, and that is fine because they're upfront with that.
That's fine. So it does it hamstring the whole thing? Absolutely. But I don't think it invalidates it. I don't think it invalidates it. And their quote there that the larger speakers, that's just true. You put a second driver that is handling different frequencies inside of a bigger box, and you compare it to something that's a cube that has a single driver in it trying to do everything, full range, from 20 hertz down to, let's be generous and say 250 hertz, where the subwoofer is supposed to take over. Yeah, it's not going to do very well. Yeah. It's not going to sound very flat. It's not going to have a very as full a sound. Of course it's not. So this is just, I mean, this is a Captain Obvious statement is really what this is. I mean, of course this is true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other funny quote that was in there was they were saying how it pretty much came down to whichever systems had the best center speaker and subwoofer ended up winning. Because most of what they're hearing is the dialogue in movies and TVs is coming out of the center. And then if you have a good subwoofer, it fills in the bottom end. I'm like, I could see that being the case for sure.
Yeah. And that's, we've said stuff like that before. And this is a very specific use case where people are just buying their first system. They don't want to have to, mix and match. They don't understand how all this stuff works. They just want to be able to plug it in. And a lot of times when somebody, like, if somebody were to email me who was just a friend of mine or something like that, and like, hey, I found these two speaker packages online. Which one do you think would be better? I look at them and I see which one has the bigger center channel, which one has the bigger sub, and I say that's the one.
There you go.
I mean, that's what I would do without having looked at this or anything else. I mean, I'm looking at them like, well, this one looks like it's going to be better. And why? Oh, well, reasons, because I'm smart. I've done this for
I mean their picks. They're like the step down from this was the Pioneer Andrew Jones speakers,
sure,
and then they're like this ELAC debut series. They're like that's kind of the middle road that we think would work for the largest number of people, and I can agree with that. And then they're like a step up pick would be the KEF-Q series, and I'm like I can agree with that too.
Yeah.
So
sure.
Yeah, I don't have any big disagreement with this. I would choose the subwoofer that's appropriate for the size of room, and I don't care what brand it is, and I would get 5 other speakers, but I get where they're coming from. Right. Yeah, and it's, the clarification that when they say compact, they're talking tiny, not bookshelf versus tower.
Steve lives in Rhode Island, and the nor'easter went through his area. I think it went through all of those areas, but yes, he went through. Power lines went down, and sadly, Steve's Marantz SR7009 Rust Sound amp and dual SVS PB12 NSDs all blew. Replacing the amp in his Rust Sound amp got it working again. SVS amazingly said they replaced the blown amps in his dual subs. No cost to Steve, even though it's totally not their fault in any way. Stand-up service there. Again, we were just talking about that. Replacing a fuse in his Marantz got it making sound again, but there's no HDMI output. It seems the HDMI board got fried. Steve has been eyeing a receiver upgrade anyway, so he bought an SR7011. So now the question is what to do with the SR7009. So number one, is there a cheap way to get the HDMI board fixed? Doubtful.
I mean, there's a way to get the HDMI board fixed. I don't know what you consider cheap.
Yeah, I can't imagine that it's going to be less than like $50 or something like that. I mean, it's going to.
No, it'll be. You'll have to ship it to their service center. They absolutely can replace an HDMI board.
That's what they'll have to do. They'll have to replace it. But who knows what else they'll find down the line that's also fried. That's where I think you're going to have the problems here. If it's making sound, this is another amp.
Well, that's exactly his next thing.
So he says, could he? I didn't see that. He could potentially use the SR7009 just a dumb amp for his Atmos channels. How would he connect the SR7011 to the SR7009 to make that happen? Pre-outs to pre-ins.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, because the SR7009 has 7.1 analog inputs. Yep. You don't even have to do so let's say it didn't have 7.1 analog inputs, like a lot of AV receivers don't, and you wanted to run 4 Atmos channels using your old receiver as just a dumb amplifier. You can usually do that because it'll have, at a minimum, it'll have a pair of left-right inputs, like the CD input. There's 2. And then you can usually run zone 2. As well. Usually you can assign, say, the surround back binding posts to your zone 2. So you wire in another left-right input, your DVD input or something like that, left-right audio, and then you send that out of zone 2 and assign that to, say, your surround back binding posts. And now you have 4 amplifier channels. But the 7009 makes it even easier. It has a 7.1 analog input. So you can plug in 7 speakers if you wanted to and use 7 amps. Yeah.
So I would just basically what you're going to do is you're going to put from your outputs on the Atmos speaker outputs on your 7011, you're going to go to the left, right, and surround left, surround right. Doesn't really matter. Inputs on the SR7009.
Yep.
You'll put it into pure direct mode. You'll turn it to reference to 0.
The master volume on the 7009.
0. Yep. And that's it, Haas. You done.
that is now a dumb amplifier and nothing else.
An amplifier. It's going to do nothing other than amplify those channels. You want it in pure direct mode so that it's or direct mode, I guess. It doesn't really matter.
Either one, yeah.
I do pure direct just to be safe. Sure. And then you go to the settings and you lock everything down.
Yep.
So
and of course, you tune the input of the 7009 to the 7.1 analog input, of course, because that's where the signal is coming from.
The other thing you would do is you want to go back into the trim levels. I mean, you don't have to do this because your 7011 will fix this anyways. But I would go to trim levels, make sure all the trim levels are at 0.
Yeah,
just to make sure. And I would. There's one more thing I was thinking I would do.
The distances.
Yeah, I guess I would change it. Just.
I mean, usually you can just do those. You just do a factory reset on the 7009. To be honest, just do a factory reset and leave everything at default.
Oh, the other thing I would do is I would go into the menu, and a lot of times you can set the turn on volume,
Oh, sure.
and you can either do to last or set it to reference. Sometimes you can have it set
0,
to
yeah.
0. I keep hitting this microphone today. Have it set to 0 so that when it powers off and it powers back on, you don't have to worry about it
Yeah,
coming back.
it'll
at
always
the
come
right
back at the
volume.
same volume level. Yeah.
Yeah. So there
All
you
right.
go. Anthony's setup is in his basement. It's quite a large open space. He didn't provide exact dimensions. He does say that he sits about 13 feet away from his new 65-inch Sony X900E. And if you see these pictures, he is a very good vacuumer.
We've got another person with the very clean vacuum lines.
Very good vacuumer. I am loving your vacuuming. You could come vacuum my place. It's like little Christmas trees everywhere. I love this. All right, so it's a humongous room. It's open to looks like the whole world, and there's like a baby gate to keep things out, but that doesn't work for sound. It's got a drop ceiling.
Yep.
With can lights in it. It looks like he may have some overhead speakers in it, though that might not be what that is up there.
I think those are air ducts. I think that's what those are.
Yeah, it could be.
I think those are air ducts.
So he bought an Xbox One X to go along with this new TV, and now he's feeling like his sound system isn't up to snuff. He has an older Yamaha receiver that doesn't handle 4K, so that needs to be replaced. He's okay with the Klipsch SW350 sub, an Energy Connoisseur center speaker, but his front left right are leftover Boston acoustic speakers from a compact 5.1 speaker package, again with the small speakers. And he tried a pair of Def Tech SM45s, but they didn't really seem to fill his space. Things are sounding a little empty. He has maybe $1,000 he'd like to spend. What we suggest on a new receiver plus whatever speakers we think he should buy. Do you want to have Atmos, or are you just looking for 4K?
Yeah.
Because you have a drop ceiling, sir, and if anybody can put Atmos in, it is you.
Yes.
So yeah.
But then that eats up a lot of your $1,000 budget on an $800 receiver.
Right. That's the problem there. So the speakers you've been looking at are, first of all, this room is beautiful and well vacuumed, and you've got a lot of insulation in your ceiling, but there's nothing else on the walls anywhere.
Yeah, it's bare otherwise. Yeah.
So you may be having some dialogue intelligibility issues and not filling your space issues because of how things are bouncing around.
Although at least it is fully carpeted, so that helps.
Yeah, that does help. I'm not saying you've got nothing in here, but it might be, first of all, I know you have $1,000 to spend. We're going to ask you to spend more than that. And by the end of this, that's just the way this is going to have to go. So sometimes we tell people to spend less money. You, sir, are not that person. So, because you've got a lot going on here, and it'd be very easy. So the first decision you need to make is, do I want Atmos?
Right.
If I want Atmos, that's going to make a big difference as to what receiver you're going to buy. Yes. We're going to say probably the Denon X4300H is what we're going to tell you to buy, so that you can get 5.2.4.
Well, you could even do 7.2.4 with that one. You have to add an external 2-channel amp to get 11 speakers.
So we don't know how many speakers he currently has, though, right? We don't.
I mean, it sounds like 3 from what he said. It sounds like it's a 3.1 setup right now.
Don't see anything else. So if all he really wants is bigger, a 4K receiver, that can pass through 4K. I mean, he could basically get any sort of entry-level Denon or Marantz at this point.
Oh, you sure
even Yamaha, if he really wanted to, because he's already got Yamaha, he could be getting something from them.
But yeah,
and all
you
the
could
stuff
do
passes through these days.
an X1300 or an X1400 would be totally fine. If you're going to stick to 5.1 or 7.1 or maybe go to 5.1.2, then like an X1300 or X1400 would be fine. The X3300, because it gives you multi-Q XT32, is a nice choice for $500, but you don't have to spend that, and that still tops out at 5.1.2 or 7.1. So I'm thinking like an X1300, X1400 is probably the appropriate choice.
And then as far as speakers go, I'm going to go back and say the same thing I said about the other guy who's sitting way far away, which is Klipsch or the HSUs.
Yep.
So the HSUs, HB1s or whatever they're called, those, these are horn-loaded speakers that put a lot of output. I mean, if you wanted to spend more, you can go look at like the Philharmonics or whatever those things are called.
Those way more expensive.
I know. I just said that. Or if you were, you could be looking at the RBHs too. The new Impression series that's out. Their bookshelf speakers would.
I mean, both of them are around $300 a pair. That's the price range. Which, I mean, if you're getting an X1300 or 1400, that still leaves you plenty in the budget to upgrade something else, even if you wanted to. Maybe get some acoustic panels. with
Yeah.
that.
So, but you would probably be looking at a center as well. So,
Yeah, it would be nice to get all three so that they all match. So if you got HSU horn loaded, 3 across the front, or RBH impression series, 3 across the front, plus a Denon X series receiver, I think you'd be in good shape.
now if you want, if you, like I said, if you're going to want Atmos eventually, you're suddenly looking at a receiver that's going to eat up most of your budget right now. So, what I would do is, for now, I would connect my I would do whatever I did to get the 4K to my TV. If that's going directly to the TV, then audio return channel down to your receiver, which you might not be able to do at all with your Yamaha at this moment. If it's such a bottleneck, then you're going to have to get the receiver first if you are going to end up having Atmos eventually. If not, you get the cheaper receiver. You can get the front, left, and right speakers if you decide to and get a center channel later on if you really want to.
Yeah.
But you're quickly going to find out that whatever center that you currently had it's an Energy, right? Is that what you said? It was
Energy Connoisseur, yeah.
Well, if that one's doing okay for you, you can always just try to stick with it and see how it goes. RBH in particular, out of the models that we've mentioned, is probably going to play the nicest with it.
Agreed.
So you've got some options there. You've got some options. But I would also be looking at room treatments in the future. I would also be looking at overhead speakers and bigger subs, different subs.
Yeah, subwoofer
more
upgrade
subs,
maybe.
lots of subs. Yeah. we could hook you up here, but you're gonna have to open your wallet, unfortunately. Do we have time to do one more?
We have time to do more than 2 more, I think.
We'll see. John S. John has a family of 6, and they are shopping for a new house. Having a dedicated room for the theater is one of the features they're hoping to find. Don't hope, sir. Make it happen.
Make it happen.
Do not. If you walk in the house, I walked in every single house and said, "Where's the theater?" And if I didn't see it, I was like, "Well, it doesn't have a theater." And my wife was like, "I know, but what about this?" I'm like, "Yeah, but it doesn't have a theater."
Just right.
Throwing that out there, not a theater. When we walked into this house and it said 4-2, and we found 5-3, and one of them was an unlicensed, whatever mother-in-law suite that they had built off the back patio, basically, which had been enclosed as well as being part of the house. I was like, yeah, the 5 and the extra 1 that not included on the 4-2 that we were looking at. Yeah, that's the home theater. So we ended up having to move a wall and do a bunch of stuff. But once I saw the home theater, I was sold. And my wife was sold and everything else. So it worked out. So what would we look for in the home theater room if we were buying a house? Rectangle, or easily made to be a rectangle, attached bathroom. He wants to know what considerations to have in mind. Would having the theater area in one section of a bonus room be a good idea, or could a spare bedroom make a good theater? Okay, all those things. No, well, not if I'm looking at a house, I'm looking for an enclosed theater.
Yes.
Now, I did say bathroom attached. It is super nice to have a bathroom attached. Believe me.
Not 100% required. If you have to go through a door to get to the bathroom, it's not the end of the world.
Well, through another room to get to the bathroom.
Right,
I mean, you always have to go to the door. You don't have to open the bathroom door.
No, but I mean, open the door to your theater
what
and
kind
then
of people live up in Canada.
Go to the entrance to the bathroom. That's not what I meant.
That's what it sounded like you meant.
All right.
Anyhow, an enclosed room. And not square if possible, and big enough to fit the number of seats that you have. So does an extra bedroom work? Not usually very well. It can.
It depends on the size.
If you're looking at a traditional small bedroom of 10 by 11 or 11 by 11.
Yeah, that's a bit tight.
10 by 12 or something like that. That's a little too small.
Like 12 by 15 is kind of a nice size for a small theater.
That works. That works. That you can get a nice row of seats in there, a big screen, enough speakers, and you got some room to play with.
Yeah.
By definition, a bedroom has to have a closet. If it doesn't have a closet, it's of course not a bedroom,
it's a den. Yeah,
a den or something like that, or just a room,
or an office.
So your closet ends up being your space where you can put your gear.
Yep.
So you got to think about where your gear's going to go and everything else, and always look at where the doors are placed in relation to everything else. Yeah. Because a lot of times they're like, okay, well, this can work, but where am I going to put the TV where it's not going to block a door? Where am I going to put a speaker where it's not going to block a door? Where am I going to put the couch where it's not going to block a door? So those are the things to sort of look for. Can you use a spare bedroom? Yes. Real small bedrooms don't work, in my opinion. But I would also not settle on a section of a room.
Yeah, that's
because that's just
not the way to do it.
asking for. Now, I would take a small bonus room that has
Sure.
regularly shaped roof and everything else, because all that can be dealt with.
Yeah.
But I would do that far before I would take a section of a basement or a
Yeah.
side of a
Yeah,
living
try
room or
not to
something
have
like
a
that.
theater area. Try to have a theater
Yeah.
room. But yeah, I mean, if it's like a rec room in a basement, that'd be fine. A small bonus room, a 12 by 15 bedroom, all of those can work. But look for an enclosed room where all of the room can be dedicated to being the theater.
He says, should he be thinking of 2 rows of seats? All 4 of his kids are under 11 right now, but they won't stay that age forever. Uh, yeah, there's no, if you find a room that has that's the right size, even if it's 12 by 15, uh,
Yeah, I mean, 12 by 15, you could set it up width-wise and just have a wider seat and just
right.
one row.
You could. And like I said, on our couch, we can get 5 people on our couch, 5 normal sized people on our couch. Fairly easily. With the kids, we got extra room, and if somebody's sitting on the lap, we got lots of room. So, that's a 10-foot wide couch. It's very plush, and everybody's very happy. There's only 3 seats that recline, but once you put them all up and you line them up so that everybody's reclined at the same level, it becomes one big, nicely reclined area. But what I also have is like a love seat on the back wall and another individual seat also on the back wall. There's a corner trap that's pushing it off the wall slightly, but that has an extra area for people to sit in the back. The sound's not optimal. They're my kids. They can suck it. Sorry, you want to sit in here and you don't want to sit on the big couch with us, you can sit at the back of the room where the sound sucks. So that's your deal. So that's your second row of seats, and I guaranteed your kids aren't going to care, not as much as you do. So yeah, I mean, you as far as that's how my family of 5 lives. I have no problems believing that your family of 6 is not going to have. And right now, my 14-year-old, we have to straight up force him to be in here with us. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, as they get into teenage years, they're not going to be all together watching a movie together very often.
You're gonna be losing them. You're gonna have to force them to sit in there, and they'll be plenty happy to sit in the back where you can't see them while they're texting on their phone or falling asleep or picking their nails or whatever. So lastly, he says, how much does the size of the room make a difference in terms of what acoustic treatments would be needed? Well, if you have a really big room, you need more acoustic treatments because you got to cover more area.
Yeah, it's all just down to the surface area. It's about 30% of the surface area you want absorptive. And that includes maybe it's wall-to-wall carpet or not. So factor that in as well. Although you can always install carpet, right? So
yeah. So Miguel on Facebook, last question here because I am fading. What do we think of Canton speakers, their Chrono series, that accessories for less sells in particular? I did not think we would get this far, to be honest with you. So why don't you start, and I'm going to look this up.
So yeah, I never heard them, so I really can't give a first-hand opinion. The Chrono series is not quite their entry level, but it's like towards more closer to their entry level than their other higher end series. They seem to have pretty favorable reviews. They're a very normal, tried and true design. They're a German speaker company, aluminum drivers. There's nothing about their design that would throw up any red flags whatsoever for me. They seem to focus on having a fairly nice finish on the outside. So, I mean, there's nothing about them that makes me go, ooh, I should avoid that. They look like completely reasonable speakers to me. Yeah, that's all I can offer because I haven't heard them.
So yeah, this Canton in general is something I saw a lot more when I was living in Australia and as I traveled around Europe at times. This has a very European look about it. The one thing that concerns me about this speaker, just looking at it, so I'm looking at the Chrono 509.2, whatever. It's a floor standing 3-way speaker. The tweeter looks low to me. The tweeter looks low, and I find that's kind of true on many speakers that are of European design because the couches tend to be a little bit lower, and so ear level is not exactly the same. I have heard some Canton speakers in the past that have been fine. I have not. There's been nothing that really super blew me away about them, but they would be, to my mind, similar to a Polk type speaker.
Okay.
Maybe not quite as bass heavy, I would say.
Okay.
But they seem to be, sort of a mass market thing, which are, I've also seen some of their higher end stuff too as well. But I've heard it before, but it's been a real long time and nothing super blew me away. I would say a perfectly respectable speaker company that
They
I
look
don't normally.
completely reasonable to me. So
They look reasonable. There's nothing on there that screams, "Hey, this doesn't make any sense," and
right.
or
Yeah.
what's going on here and all that. I mean, they're a speaker. So, this is one of them. That's I mean,
Middle of the
aluminum dome.
road. Everything
Yeah.
seems to reflect that. Yeah.
Middle of the road. I think I can be okay with that. He has one subwoofer for now, but he's planning on getting a second in a few months. So once he has duals, he'd like to use them as speaker stands for his front, left, right speakers. What we recommend putting under his speakers and on top of his subs to isolate the speakers and raise them up to ear level. Well, first of all, I would not recommend that you use them as your front, left, and right speaker stands because that's not the best place for your subwoofers to be. We've talked about this multiple times in the past, but to properly place speakers, you need to have them in the place that is good for bass, which is not the same place that is good for front, left, and right speakers. So if you absolutely must put them there,
right,
for whatever reason that it is, first of all, be prepared to not have the benefits of dual subwoofers that you would normally have by placing them correctly, which is more even bass across all of your seats. Instead, what you're going to have is something that's probably not that. You're going to have uneven bass and more problems than you would have normally had just by setting them up. So you will then have to go through the process that Rob's going to talk about on our 12-step program for uneven bass in oddly shaped rooms, which will be dealing with phase and doing measurements and basically wasting hours and hours of your life. But if you decide to do this anyways, you need something to isolate them in some way from something of layer that absorbs vibrations between the speaker and the subwoofer. So what could that be? I've got a couple of sound isolation pads. They sell for $200 a piece. You'll need 2 per speaker.
Mouse pads.
Mouse pads work fine.
Mouse pads would be fine. Now, if you do need to raise the height, I would suggest put a mouse pad directly on top of the sub or on top of the speaker stand.
Sure.
Then a block of wood, something, whatever looks nice and gets you the correct height.
Yeah.
But I mean, seriously, like anything that has some weight, I would like it to have some weight to it. Some kind of box, and then another mouse pad on top of that, and then the speaker, because I want to have both the subwoofer and the speaker have physical vibrations, so you want damping in direct contact with the vibrating things, and then whatever.
Most speaker stands, when you buy them, they have some sort of little rubber pads that you attach to the top of the thing, and that's the same idea.
I mean, you could use that plumber's tape as well. The
rubberized
plumber's tape.
Insulation, the rubber insulation tape. Yeah.
Something squishy. That's all. Damien's is such a short answer. Can we answer?
I already scrolled to the top. It's over.
No,
Rob, just let it go. It's over. I'm going on vacation tomorrow. And I have to get up at 7:30 a.m. to go run to the office to go do some last-minute work.
Seriously, so short to answer.
I know, it's weird that we're going to skip it. All right. This is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your questions. Get your questions answered. All you have to do is ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. We want to thank our listeners of the week. We're going to start with Brock and Brandon, who went to www.avrant.com and left us a PayPal donation. So thank you, Brock, and thank you, Brandon.
Yes, Brock, Brandon, thank you very much for those donations.
And thank you to our 56 patrons over at patreon.com for signing up for their monthly service to give us a donation every month. So thank you, all of our 56 patrons, including John S.
Yeah, that's patreon.com/AVRant podcast. Thanks so much to our 56 patrons. John, thank you for being one of them.
And thank you to Shubu2 on YouTube for telling us about the YouTube not needing to see anymore.
Yeah.
John for letting SVS know that it was because of us that he bought his new sub. And Terry for sending Rob some free Ultra HD Blu-ray discs.
Yeah, Shubu2, thank you very much. I never would have checked that, and I'm happy about that. I like it being a simpler address. YouTube.com/AVRant. That's it. Woohoo, so simple. John S., congrats on your SVS purchase. Very nice stuff. And Terry, thanks so much for those discs. I appreciate it.
For AV Rant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Oh, we forgot.